schedule. So, could we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Member Alan Moss.
Here.
Member Alfonso Carney.
Here.
Member Adam Freed.
Here.
Member Jonathan Goldman.
Here.
Member Arlen Shaw.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. The first order on my agenda is to thank Al Carney for stepping up to the plate for me. I was a true scholar and gentleman, and anybody that disagrees with that, let me see you right now.
Mr. Chairman, it was my pleasure. I'm not sure that I was a good acting chairman at the public hearings, but I enjoyed it very much. Thank you for the opportunity.
I read the transcripts, and I assure you you were. All right. Having said that, I want to turn to the minutes of our last meeting. If you had an opportunity to look that over, I would need a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Our minutes of the meeting of the 23rd are adopted. All right. Now we come to the annual budget. Mr. Lewis, you have some
Thank you, Mr.
wisdom
Chair,
for us?
members. Good morning. The next item for approval by the board is the annual budget of the water and wastewater system. You have this in your package. There is a draft resolution, and immediately following the resolution are a number of exhibits. The first one is a spreadsheet containing the annual budget, and if you look in the lower right-hand corner, it's approximately $3.7 billion proposed for fiscal year 2015, which begins on July 1st of this year. More precisely, it's $3,688,576,000. Many of the components displayed here you've seen displayed as part of the presentations that Commissioner Lloyd had given to the Water Board, not only at the initial rate announcement, but at the 5 public hearings. Immediately following that spreadsheet are 3 certifications. The first one being from the Executive Director of the Water Finance Authority, Tom Policelli, certifying that the total debt service requirement for fiscal year 15 is $950,894,000. The next certification is from the city's budget director, Dean Foulahan, that is certifying as to the total operations and maintenance expense of the water and sewer system at $1,328,000,000, and the budget director is also certifying the rental payment, the base rental payment of $231 million for a total of $1,559,171,000. Finally, in terms of the last of the 3 certifications, is the certificate of the consulting engineer to the water and sewer system, to the Water Finance Authority, AECOM, and the certification that the expenses proposed are adequate to keep the system going. And finally, on the last page, there is detail about the proposed budget for the water board itself. A total of $39 million, the biggest single piece of which is approximately $29 million, which, as we've explained to the board before, those are the subscription fees that our 142,000 customers who currently subscribe to the Water Service Line Protection Program, the Water and Sewer Service Line Protection Program. Those customers get billed their subscription fees on their water bills. They pay them to us, and we pass them through immediately and entirely, that entire $29 million, to the vendor for the protection program, American Water Resources, AWR.
None of it sticks to us? No, okay.
No.
We do have a commission.
Go ahead.
We have a commission of 11 cents per water service line
good,
contract and
yes.
13 cents per sewer
So-
service line contract.
So we do.
Compensate us for
Yes,
our costs of administering the program.
yes.
I would be happy to answer any questions.
On the base rental payment, the 231 million, how does that stand relative to last year?
The current projection for this year is 219, so it's slightly higher, but as the debt service.
The base rent payment is higher than last year?
Yes, because we are, again, the rental payment is a function of the debt service that's being projected. And so the debt service, as you may recall, we've had, as of the time that the rate proposal was prepared, we had $153 million in debt service savings this year. We had favorable interest rates. We budget each year conservatively, and so the debt service that we're budgeting for next year reflects a more conservative interest rate assumption than our actual interest rate experience for the year that's about to end.
I had a question on the spreadsheet that we have in front of us, which lists operations and maintenance number combined with the rental number, subtotal. Thank you, page 3. A subtotal of 1.677 billion.
Yes.
So, and I'm just curious what represents the difference between that number and the 1.559 in the letter from the Office of Management Budget?
Sure. The difference there is our operations and maintenance reserve fund, which we fund up each year on July 2nd of this coming year. I'll start at the beginning. Each year, at the end of the fiscal year, we have to have 1/6 of the next year's operations and maintenance expenses. Then, as soon as 6/30 has happened, and the beginning of the next fiscal year, we transfer 1/12 of the total, or half of what's in the reserve fund, to pay the city for the operations and maintenance. So it's an upfront payment for that first month of operating and maintaining business. And so after that is taken down, we have a remaining piece, and we have to fund up the operations and maintenance reserve fund. So that is the difference there, that fund up, and it's 118 million.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, thank you.
I'm sorry, I had one other, which is,
Sure.
is the $950 million approximately in debt service that's referenced in the Municipal Water Finance Authority letter representative of the, in that spreadsheet, that same spreadsheet, the debt service payment less the prior year carry forward?
Exactly. It is the first 3 line items there.
Thank you.
Just a general comment with regard to the budget of the water board.
Yes.
I think I mentioned to you the interest in having an opportunity for the board members to continue to learn about the water and water treatment system in the city. And I'm assuming that there is enough in this budget to allow for those opportunities to be able to take place.
Certainly. We have programmed for the June meeting Deputy Commissioner Paul Rush, who is in charge of water supply. He'll be speaking to the board. One of the topics the board requested was how do we maintain water quality, how do we protect the watershed, how do we make the watershed secure. He'll be speaking about that, and we will also be programming site visits for any interested water board members.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, we had a nice tour of Newtown Creek before the raid.
Go ahead, rub it in.
I would just add, given some of the testimony we heard during the rate hearings around concerns about hydrofracking or other risks we may face, if those issues, I imagine, would be addressed by Deputy Commissioner Rush, but if you just make sure that that's on his agenda.
Yes, it is, and he was 5 years ago the principal sponsor of the extensive consultant effort that we undertook to assess the potential risks to the water supply from hydrofracking.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Any further discussion?
Sorry, I
Yeah.
have one other question, which is on the spreadsheet that is on our last page of this packet on our the city water board expenses. Excuse me. There are line items for anticipated new contracts and executive director discretionary funds, which amount to $4 million. What kinds of things do we expect to be spending that money on?
Well, we don't have any current expectations, but for example, 5 years ago, when the state seemed on the verge of passing a set of rules regarding hydrofracking across New York State, the only way we could get a quick and thorough consultant assessment of those risks was to award a contract through the water board to go out, with all due respect to the city procurement process, to get a consultant study like that approved through the regular city procurement process could take up to 18 months. And we really needed to do something quickly because we had to use whatever efforts we could to influence the rule-setting process. So we don't have any right now, but we wanted to make sure that if the need arises, there are resources available. And of course, if a need doesn't arise, this money won't be spent.
And did those contracts come to the board for approval
Yeah.
prior?
Yes, they do, yes.
I've got to just add, without having that ability, without having that resource available, Exxon would be fracking like crazy upstate. Because the results in that, which, by the way, we very carefully gone over, the results in that were very helpful in protecting the watershed and in getting a general stay in the state.
Steve, one other question.
Yes, sir.
On that same sheet, that is the New York City Water Board projected expenditures, under New York City Law Department collection attorneys, we budgeted $425,000 and we spent, it looks like we expect to spend $22,000.
Steve, would you like me to address that?
Am I correct?
Yeah, there.
The question is this, what made us think that we would have to, were we having collections?
Steve, would you like me to address that?
I'm sorry?
Would you like me to address that?
Be delighted.
The law department retained a couple of attorneys to
Sure.
collect on various properties, particularly the condos and co-ops. They switched attorneys during the middle of the year, and we did not follow on with that new attorney as we projected last year. So we are still evaluating that, but for the time being, we have
So the number may well, you budgeted $50,000 for next year.
Yes.
Thank you.
One other quick question, it's not a very significant item, but what is the line item for Sarah Sinclair?
Yes, the previous commissioner had wanted to sort of mark the end of the 12-year prior administration by conducting a pilot to do a small bit of oral history. And so we engaged an oral history consultant from Columbia University to do a 2-hour interview of the commissioner and of our now retired Assistant Commissioner of Intergovernmental Affairs, who after a career at DEP had the wealth of institutional knowledge that we wanted to preserve. So we engaged this consultant to do that for us.
And you're proposing carrying forward in the next year as well? It's proposed.
There's some additional work on the web.
Okay.
That they need to put those interviews on the web.
Okay.
Yeah.
They need to listen to them. And that was done through a short letter procurement that went out to several different people.
And the results of that, or some work product
Yes.
from that is going to be available to the public?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
It's being edited right now. Not that we said anything we regret.
Just to truncate it down.
Yeah. Any other questions?
If there are no other questions, I need a motion for the adoption of the fiscal year 2015 annual budget.
Second.
Any discussion? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then the last action item is the approval of the fiscal year 2015 rate. Just briefly, we held 5 hearings, 1 in each borough. We had total attendance by the public of approximately 44 people. That is just under 9 per hearing. At the Bronx, there was one person. And we had approximately 22 speakers across the 5 hearings, 4.4 on average per borough. The concerns expressed were those that we hear often in rate hearings about, that the rates get raised every year. The last 2 nights in Staten Island and Queens, in addition, we had 1 speaker in each borough who made each of those hearings a little bit more exciting than they otherwise would be. The board is being asked to approve the overall rate increase of 3.35%. And then the other changes to our rate schedule. I would like to call to the board's attention that as a result of input we got in testimony at the Manhattan hearing a week ago today regarding the liberalization of the leak forgiveness program to include maintainable fixtures like toilets and sinks. One of the comments was to provide a longer deadline than the one that we had originally proposed. We had deadlines in there of 60 days and 90 days to to apply for forgiveness and make the repair. And in response to the testimony we heard, we are proposing to the board that we have a single deadline of 120 days to both make the application and complete the repair. And we feel that that's warranted because it may, despite the near omnipresence of automated meter reading, there may be customers for whom a longer period to determine that they've had the leak and apply for the forgiveness is necessary. Any questions?
I don't have a question, but I have a statement.
Yes, sir.
And that is, one, is that I, like all the rest of the members of the board, I'm sure, if we had our druthers, there would be no increase. I, in particular, as a child in depression, know what it means about putting food on the table and being able to keep the wolf away from the door, so to speak. So that's where I'm coming from, and that's where I think the members of the board are coming from on this. On the other hand, we do have a legal responsibility, and we are required to assure that the rates that we approve will support the integrity of the system. And that's what we're bound to do. And that's, I assume, what, everybody has an independent vote here, but at least that's what I intend to do. The other thing is that I am extremely surprised and gratified that the rate that's being put forward is roughly 50% of what I had anticipated earlier. And that is, in my opinion, an extraordinary accomplishment. Could not have been done without a lot of hard work by both DEP and is a I want to call it a testament, because that sounds kind of, but it is to Emily Lloyd's leadership, and I give her a lot of credit. And I know that she worked very hard. Of course, in order to be able to get this result, she had to delay the hearings, and we had to take action a little bit later this year than we thought last year, but that was worth it, because she was able to accomplish, I think, in my opinion, an extraordinary result. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
that's
I
where,
agree with you. I think she did a pretty good job for being on board only 5 weeks at the time that the rate was proposed.
yeah.
And just a reminder that the resolution that's in front of you, because we don't want to presume anything, is it has a blank where the percentage rate increase will be. And so if the board approves the 3.35% increase as proposed, then the minutes and the final copy of the resolution will reflect that instead of the blank that's already there.
Yes, I'm wondering if you might just explain for us for a moment the section about the cap on meter charges. Obviously, it only applies in certain qualifying circumstances, but I wonder, is that something that ends up having a material effect on the budget, or is that something that doesn't come up?
No, it doesn't. I would say in terms of appeals that I review during the year, maybe 20 times or so in the course of the year, we get someone who they use an extraordinary amount of water. And in most of those cases, these were people who had a toilet leak that was ineligible for forgiveness hopefully until a few minutes from now. And so there was another form of relief we could offer them, which is the bill cap. My guess is that the bill cap provision will be applied much less if the board approves the package that's before the board that includes the expansion of the leak forgiveness program. We have our Deputy Commissioner, Joe Singleton, Deputy Commissioner of Customer Service. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Joe?
I think you pretty much.
Yeah.
So that's usually when it comes up if somebody has.
Yeah, and in my experience, that is almost every case.
Anybody, Kieran? Any self-serving statements?
I would just echo Commissioner Moss's, Chairman Moss's comments. I'm very impressed with the skill, attention, and creativity applied by the Water Board and by the staff in this case to look at multiple opportunities to try to provide services and relief to customers and recognizing the testimony we heard and prior to the rate hearing. So commend the staff for their work and dedication to this.
Thank you. And I would also like to add that there's really been an exemplary level of professionalism in terms of how the materials were presented to us and to the public and to the way in which the hearings were conducted. And I also would like to thank all of you who've been, Steve and Mathilde and everybody else who's been involved in all those efforts.
I think, Mr. Chairman, you have said
And I want to thank you for taking time away from your newborn. Thank you. All right, there be no further, I need a motion for the adoption of the fiscal year 2015 rate and to allow the insertion of 3.35.
So moved.
Increase.
Second.
Okay. There's no discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, it's adopted, the rate increase.
Thank you.
which is- this is, by the way, the
Thank you
lowest
very
in what,
much.
in 7 years?
9 years.
9 years. The
9
lowest
years,
in 9
yes.
years.
I have a brief financial update, thank you, and I would, just before starting that, I pointed out Deputy Commissioner of Customer Services, Joe Singleton, earlier. Joe has been in charge of customer services since early 2006. We think we don't remember the exact date. This is Joe's last appearance at the Water Board. He is retiring early in June, and after a long career in city service, starting at OMB. I just want to say that when I got to DEP 8 years and 1 week ago, and Joe had just become Deputy Commissioner of Customer Services, we had 15 to 20% of our bills being estimated. We had a lot of unhappy customers who were challenging their bills. We had a call center at which customers calling had to wait an average of 8 minutes just to be connected to someone. Joe brought that down to about 30 seconds without spending any more money in the customer center, but just by managing it better. We didn't meet our revenue plan for a number of years. We were $100 million behind our goal of revenue collection. As of this morning, we're about $170 million ahead of plan. And in light of the news this week that Mayor de Blasio has put a halt to the 911 system, and the controller has imposed additional requirements for approving technology contracts. Joe managed the $250 million automated meter reading project, which one of the biggest technology projects of the previous administration that was finished on time, on budget, and small additional detail, it works. So I would just like to take this opportunity to thank Joe and acknowledge that as part of the minutes of this meeting.
Let me just add, you know what I'm going to add, Joe? Joe was at the Parks Department many years ago.
Actually started in Parks, not only.
Okay.
So that everything that he is today, he learned it. Congratulations, young man. That's absolutely, you leave an extraordinary record of achievement.
I've had a wonderful career in city government and DEP. The staff's brought it a long way in the 9 years I've been down there. And I think we were presented with the opportunity to put best-in-class technology in. It really helped the customers, helped the staff. There's a lot of transparency where before there wasn't as far as water usage. I think there's a lot of professionals from the industry in the audience who I've gotten to know, and the conversations we've had in the last couple of years are, I think, a lot easier to have than they were when we were getting 4 reads a year at best case. And now we're at 4 data points a day. The prior administration and this administration, I think, have made the appropriate choices as far as water policy. I think the technology that we now have in place is allowing us to do the lead forgiveness, allowing us to couple with HRA and do those data transfers as far as people that need assistance. The MCP program, again, that's as close as we have to an affordable housing rate. If you look around the country, California, Florida, Texas, it's not a matter of the cost of water. It's a matter of, is there going to be water at any cost? And I think New York City is going to continue to be able to grow. I mean, I read something in the paper today. We've had the highest increase in population of any country in the last 12 months, about 64,000. Water's been the engine of New York City since the inception. And I think this agency has a very proud tradition of moving ahead of that growth, anticipating that growth, and being ready to accommodate that growth. I don't think that'll change. We're putting the Croton system on. We'll be ready to shut down to do the aqueduct repair. I want to thank Steve and my staff for the support over the years, the support of the board. You're sitting here today in a very good place. I assure you these were not happy hearings when we were raising rates 12%, 14%, and we didn't have an AMR system. They were very, very difficult, challenging times, and I think we're the city, the agency, the customer base is all in a much better place because of the actions that the board has supported, made some very difficult decisions over the years. So I just want to thank everybody from the bottom of my heart. It's been a pleasure working with you all, and best of everything to everyone. Thank you.
So now just quickly some of the fruits of Joe's work. Revenue, as I said, 176 million or 6% above target. Year to date, 6%. And again, that's the most we've been above target since 2003. Water distribution, measuring water as it flows from Hillview Reservoir into the city distribution system through the 3 water tunnels. About 0.6% below last year. The lien sale, forgot that among Joe's accomplishments was in 2008, we had the first ever in modern times, water-only lien sale after pushing for city council legislation to subject people who were not delinquent in their property taxes but still delinquent in their water payments to have a water-only lien sale. Joe, as he said, he worked very closely with the finance department, had to set up a whole lot of processes that we didn't previously have. The lien sale mid-May was the last day to settle up the delinquent accounts and escape being in the lien sale. You can see how we started with an initial count of 16,000 properties, and by approximately May 1st, 10 days before you could escape the lien sale, that had been narrowed down to 8,000, that people came in, they either paid in full or they signed a binding payment agreement to escape the lien sale. I think it's also encouraging that we started last year with almost 20,000 properties, and this year the starting count was 16,000, still high but lower than last year. Payment agreements, we have 27,000 of them. Just think of that as a fraction of our 836,000 customers, and under the City Council's liberalization of the payment agreement rules 4 years ago, you could elect to pay zero down and stretch out your payments to 10 years. And you can see that 2/3 of those who negotiate payment agreements or subscribe to payment agreements choose that, the longest repayment term and the smallest down payment. As part of the introducing the multifamily conservation program, which the board approved 2 years ago, we anticipated that there would be a number of former frontage flat rate customers who would convert to metered billing, but the pace of conversion has been slower than we had originally anticipated, and the pace of conversion so far this year is, in terms of the number of accounts, it's 47% below the conversion pace in 2012, the last fiscal year before we introduced the MCP program that we have today. This is encouraging also, and it's part of what we've been saying about the benefit of automated meter reading, is the blue bars are the initial billing complaints that come into DEP, and you can see them trending down. The reds are those that after we deny the initial complaints, the reds can choose to appeal to the Deputy Commissioner, Joe Singleton, but that's been trending down also. And then the green, finally, are those, for those who appealed to the Deputy Commissioner and their appeals were not upheld, they can do a final appeal to the Water Board. And those are the ones that I get to see and Mathilde gets to see. Because Water Board appeals are such a small fraction of even the Deputy Commissioner appeals, it's a little hard to tell on the scale, but if you look at the numbers, they've been trending down as well too. And you see they peaked in 2011, which is the height of AMR installation and the number of complaints we got about my water consumption couldn't possibly be that high, but now we're looking at historic lows.
Of that 206, did any of those wind up in Article 78?
A very small fraction. I would say,
One or two.
yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say, one or two. Yes?
Would you mind just reminding us, at what level of overall penetration are we at this point in on automated meter installation?
Yes, approximately 96%. And the last remaining bucket, if you will, are mostly the buildings with large meters, because it's a much more complex installation program, although we have a very rapidly growing large meter program underway. And other than that, there are those customers who just refuse to let us in. And so we have a administrative approach through our rate schedule to, there's a denial of access rate we can charge them, which is approximately twice the average rate for a given size of building. These are the final appeals that come to the water board. Again, they trending down, and the blue is the number of appeals. The green line is the percentage of appeals that we end up granting. Our online offerings through MyDEP, enrollment continues to grow, and paperless billing continues to grow. Direct debit, when we switched lockbox providers from Bank of New York Mellon to Citibank, in order to continue direct debit, our customers had to re-register. And so that's why you see this sudden drop. There wasn't a loss of confidence or something. They had to re-register. So it's certainly climbing back up to near where it was. I think that's pretty significant given when we originally offered direct debit, we were offering a 2% discount for those who would enroll in that, and we no longer offer the discount, and it takes the customer, an act, a positive act, to sit down and re-register. So we think that's a pretty good sign. And then, as we've been saying at the water board hearings, we still continue to have increase in enrollment in leak notification. Customer collections, I won't go through this because it's extremely detailed. But if you, I think, just look at the number of customers who go through the clearinghouse, that 35,000, and this goes to the comment that was made at the Staten Island hearing about our not taking Visa. There were a lot of those customers would be paying higher fees than they're currently paying. Even though they're not paying with Visa, they would be subject to higher fees if we accepted Visa.
Steve, would you go back and talk to us a little bit about the third bullet point here, the security requirement for customers enter their bank account information on the new Citibank website. Auto debit payment volume is 30% lower, but now it's up by 482% since this one. I'm not sure.
That's that graph.
That was the
on
graph I
third
showed
page.
previously about how we had, basically direct debit stopped for a period of time as we cut over to Citibank.
Customers had to re-enroll their banking information because the banks could not transfer the information from one bank to another. The customer had to say, yes, I want Citibank, the water board payment sign,
So this
Citibank
was
to
a
have that.
Citibank security requirement, not ours.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
It's a
Yeah.
banking requirement.
Thank you. I didn't understand the question. Mateo does. This is for the Service Line Protection Program. We, again, a lot of information here, but they have, for the rolling 12-month period, remember the program began in January of 2013, but for the last 12-month period, there were a total of 3,078 claims commenced in water service line, sewer with non-repair, which is basically cleaning out the sewer service line, and sewer line repair for a cracked or broken sewer. These percentages mean that, in essence, the 0.6% of all the subscribers to the water service line protection program, 0.6% of them have a claim. Similarly, just under 2% have a sewer non-repair claim, a cleaning claim, and 0.5% need a sewer repair.
Give or take, these are pretty much what was projected.
And there are a number of claims denied. There were 272 denied in April. The biggest reasons, 100 of those 272, were that the issue was inside the house, which the program doesn't cover, and this goes to, despite our mailings and the information on our website on AWRs, subscribing customers, many of them apparently, they call their own plumber to make the repair, and then they expect the program to compensate them.
Steve, quick question. On the previous slide, there are 372 approved claims, 272 denied claims, customer satisfaction of 92%.
Yes.
That's of people who had approved and denied claims. There are overall rating still 92%.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, thank you.
No, thank you. And then we have out of 142,000 subscribers, we had 508, so that's like a third of 1%, cancel the program. But the biggest single reason is that the property wasn't being sold. The second biggest is this somewhat vague customer request, which is they don't offer things and they cancel. And then finally, OpEx, we have so far $75 million annualized in savings, and we expect to get up to approximately $85 million by the end of the fiscal year in 5 weeks approximately.
At some point, you're going to bring us up to speed on OpEx and...
In more detail?
Yeah.
Yes. And that's all I have, and if there are no questions, I return it to the chair.
All right, thank you very much. Anybody got any issues or questions?
I mean,
No, I just wanted to give you an opportunity, before we close, if you want to...
thanks. Steve, I have nothing on my mind. I have no issues. Everything, I think, is as it should be. But I'd love to understand the circumstances under which the board may go into an executive session. And if somebody could provide us with that information, it would be great to have. No, I can't imagine that that's going to happen, but if there may be circumstances under which it might,
Right.
and I'd like to know what they are.
Sure, and then I'll just start by saying the circumstances under which we have gone into executive session in the past have been matters of litigation or potential litigation.
Sure.
And personnel actions. They're
Sure.
there was a time, approximately 5 years ago, when we had to have a discussion about a water board staff member. So those are two that we've used in the past, but certainly.
If I could make a suggestion.
I'll work with.
Could we get somebody to come in and talk to us a little bit about that? Because very often, it's nothing more than we want to call time just to be able to talk about it. So,
Of course.
okay, that's good? We're good on that? That's
Good.
the best is yet to come. Oh, yes, we're ready to, if nothing has anything more, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. Stand adjourned.
Have a good weekend, everyone. Thank you.
Enjoy your holidays.
That's right, this is a holiday.
Thank you for coming.